South Carolina is close to passing a bill that would add the firing squad to the list of the state's execution methods. Governor Henry McMaster has indicated he will sign that bill. And once it becomes law, death row inmates in South Carolina will face a choice: die by electric chair or die by firing squad if lethal injection drugs are not available. The reason? South Carolina is facing a shortage of the drugs. According to the Spartanburg Herald-Journal, quote, drug makers have been reluctant to sell those drugs to states for executions unless the state has a law protecting the companies from litigation. South Carolina has no such law. But now, if this bill does become law, this man could be one of the first to have to make this impossible choice. Richard Moore was arrested in 1999 for shooting and killing a store clerk in Spartanburg County. That's in the northwest part of the state. Moore was found guilty and sentenced to death. Just last week, Moore's attorneys argued before the state Supreme Court that the death penalty is too harsh in his case. They say he didn't go into the store looking to kill anyone. And in fact, he didn't even walk in with the murder weapon. According to court documents his lawyers filed, it was only during a struggle with the store clerk that the clerk pulled several weapons from behind the counter. Moore got a hold of one of those weapons and they both shot each other. Moore survived. The clerk, James Mahoney, did not. Those court documents also say, quote, the state never explained how the confrontation began and that, quote, the state relied on circumstantial evidence to persuade the jury that Moore intended to commit a robbery. The state argued in its filing that, quote, although Moore did not have a gun on him when he entered the store, the sentencing jury heard evidence of his escalating history of violent robberies against persons who were physically unable to defend themselves against his violent assaults. The victim's sister, Kathy Kelly, told the Post and Courier in November, quote, our family has suffered for over 20 plus years, and it is past time that the state carries out his sentence. But Moore's family says he's a loving father and has always been supportive, even now, after all these years in prison. Here's what he said about that day to a criminal justice reform advocacy group called Justice 360.
I hate it happened. I wish I could go back and change it. There's a lot of things in my life I wish I could change, but this is definitely the most, this is definitely a part of my life I wish I could change because I took a life, I took someone's life.
I want to bring in two people very close to Richard Moore, his daughter, Alexandria Moore, and his attorney, Lindsey Vann. Vann is also the executive director of Justice 360. Alexandria, let me start with you. Take a moment, help us understand a little bit about your father from your perspective. Who is he, and what does he mean to you?
My father, I could say, is just like every other father in a sense of he is always supportive and has shown immense love throughout the distance, throughout these 2 decades. I've never felt him as anything more or as anything less than a father figure. I was always a daddy's girl, and I still am.
What has the relationship with your father been like while he's been in prison these years and on death row?
Honestly and surprisingly, I can say that our relationship has been strong. It has remained strong, and I'm sure it will continue in the future. I have a granddaughter now, and he has met her. We talk constantly on the phone. I mean, I have not been without. Even though I've had to visit him in prison, the distance between us has honestly, he doesn't let it affect his parenting at all. Like it's incredible the effort he puts in to make sure that I know he loves me.
What did you think when you heard that South Carolina was trying to pass this new bill that brings back firing squads?
It was a big shock, I could say. To want to put in so much effort to put a man to death is just wild to me. the urge to kill someone when he didn't have a fair jury, I would say.
What has your father said about this impossible choice, or has he?
For the most part, my father, I would say we don't talk too intimately about the details of his case and the circumstances. He just continues to let me know that no matter what happens, he has always loved me and my brother and his granddaughter and his son-in-law. I could say he doesn't really delve too deep into the details. He keeps it very positive, and it's just always a happy time with him. So,
Lindsey, let me bring you into the conversation now, because it's important to note here, you were not trying to prove that Moore didn't commit a crime. In fact, we just heard from Mr. Moore admit to the crime. You're just trying to convince the state that the death penalty is too harsh. Walk us through how you are making that argument. Why do you think you have such a strong case?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We are not challenging whether Richard Moore is guilty of the offense that he was convicted of. This is a question of whether South Carolina's ultimate punishment of the death penalty is appropriate in this particular case. And because he entered the store without a weapon, without any real understanding that a harm could be committed once he entered the store, this simply doesn't rise to the worst of the worst cases that the death penalty is appropriate for. And we've researched all other death penalty cases in South Carolina, and we haven't found a single other case like this where a person entered into a confrontation without a weapon and was threatened by somebody else and then got the death penalty for that crime.
Lindsey, the state was going to execute Moore in December. That would have made him the first person in South Carolina to be put to death since 2011. That didn't end up happening, though. Can you help us understand where the case stands now? What's next in the process?
The South Carolina Supreme Court took up the case again to take another look at whether the death penalty is appropriate in this particular case. Again, because this is the ultimate punishment and it's irrevocable, there are procedural protections to make sure that the state gets it right. And so the court is reconsidering this. There were arguments last week, and now we're waiting for the court's decision on whether the death sentence will stand or not. And then we'll go from there once we get the court's order.
Alexandria, your father has a notable ally here. It's the former head of the South Carolina Department of Corrections. His name's John Osment. He is a Republican, lifelong Republican, strong support of the death penalty. But he said to Justice 360 that your father should be able to live out his life, that this would not be a death penalty case in most states. What does it say to you that a person with John Osment's background is in your father's corner?
It says to me that it's pretty clear that my father deserves a chance to continue his life. To know that someone so with a differing opinion on the death penalty is supportive of my father, I think everyone needs to know that. Everyone needs to know that this man has a life that he should continue to live with his family.
What would your message be, Alexandria, to lawmakers considering who were considering this firing squad bill?
What would my message be? I'm not sure I have an answer to that. I just know for my father's case specifically, the amount of effort put in to execute my dad is it's baffling. And I think what the work that Justice 360 is doing right now to help support my father is something that they could learn from potentially, and to prevent more incidences and injustices like this from happening in the future.
Alexandria Moore, we'll leave it there. Lindsey Vann, do keep us posted on the case as well. We want to continue to follow the story. Thank you both.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.